In today's society, we've gotten conditioned to see everything as a set of transactions. Consumerism has actually conditioned us to think of everything in terms of, if I do that for you, then what do I get in return? And if you don't give me what I want, then I'll simply go elsewhere to get what I want. Now, this has undoubtedly become the default way that most people today understand religion, but not only religion, they also understand marriage to be this way as well. Now, I'm sure you've heard before that somewhere around 50% of marriages will end in divorce, according to some set of statistics that I've never seen. Now, I haven't looked at these statistics, but for the sake of the video, let's just go ahead and say that that figure is accurate. If that figure is accurate, that means that one out of every two weddings that you go to, one out of every two of them won't have a happily ever after ending. And so that begs the obvious question of, why is it so hard for two people who want to be together to just stick it out and just stay married? Most of us see marriage today as something that's basically like an agreement between two people that goes something like, as long as we continue to make each other happy, as long as we continue to have more good times than bad times, as long as we continue to have this spark, then and only then will we stay together. But if not, if you aren't making me happy, then I'm free to go somewhere else and find someone else who will. In other words, our personal happiness is the glue that keeps this thing together. And if you make me feel good, then we'll stay together. But if you don't, then we're gonna have to break up and get a divorce. Now, at the foundation of a marriage like this, everything is ultimately transactional. Even love itself, in some way, is transactional. But the Christian view that's laid out in the Bible is actually radically different than that. The Bible has a completely different way of understanding both the common view of marriage and the common view of love. Now, I remember when I first came across the Christian view of marriage a bit before I got married, and it literally changed everything that I thought I knew about marriage and flipped it upside down because it was just so radically counterintuitive to me. After a couple weeks of studying, I remember just waking up one day and it just clicked for me, just like that. I remember waking up one morning and I realized just how selfish I was living before that point. The reason I say this is because I figured that if I didn't get my needs met and I wasn't happy or something like that, then I would just be out. But once I finally understood the Christian conception of marriage, I realized that my commitment to staying in a marriage ultimately wouldn't be based on someone else making me feel good or bad. My personal feelings weren't what was at the heart of the marriage. Now, because I know that this is so radically different from how we tend to think of marriage today, it's worth repeating. My personal feelings were not at the center or the core or at the foundation of marriage. This means that it's built on something far more stable than my changing moods or feelings or anything like that. Because the marriage is built on a far stronger foundation, it can hold up against the stormy weather and the changing seasons that are inevitable in marriage. Now, although happiness is part of a Christian marriage, it's not the sole reason why you get or why you stay married. In a lot of ways, it's actually about sacrificing your personal happiness for the sake of your marriage and your family. Now, I know that I have a lot of young viewers, so I know that there's a lot of you out there right now that are like, well, count me out because that sounds awful. No, thank you. But the truth of the matter is this type of relationship is not as foreign as we think that it might be, because we have other relationships in life that are kind of like that. For example, our relationship with our children. Now, kids are hardcore and a lot of hard work. And if you don't believe me that kids are hard and exhausting, then I invite you to go work at a restaurant or spend half of an hour in a Walmart near you. At times, kids, as cute as they are, they can be super difficult and challenging. Sometimes kids won't make you happy. You won't always have those warm and fuzzy feelings towards them either. They also hardly do anything for you, and you practically do everything for them. And the best part about it is they probably don't care too much about how you're feeling, and they don't care if you're tired, because when they want something, they want it now. So if you understand this kind of relationship, then you can ask yourself the question of, why don't most parents just say, meh, I'm not happy in this relationship. I mean, what am I getting out of this? If you don't start to make me happier, then I'm out and you're not going to have a parent. The reason why is because most parents understand that the relationship is based on a commitment and it's not built on personal feelings of happiness or what you can get from the other person. Overall, most people don't put their personal happiness before their children, and instead, they actually willfully sacrifice their personal happiness for the sake of their relationship and their commitment. A good parent realizes that they're there to love and to serve. And in Christian marriage, it's also a way to serve one another. So its goal is to give rather than to get. So, the basic point that I'm trying to make is that Christian marriage is a lot more like your commitment to your child rather than it being based on a commitment to your personal feelings or temporal happiness. In fact, understanding the commitment actually prepares you for the deepest kind of love, similar to the love that you have for your children. It's the commitment that makes your feelings grow far deeper and far wider than you could have ever possibly imagined. If you think about it, in a marriage, there's really nothing more romantic than that kind of deep love that's found in something so strong and such a strong, deep commitment to a person who loves and accepts you so much that they chose to put their personal happiness aside for you to serve you for the rest of their lives. So, Christian marriage isn't transactional in nature, it's actually self sacrificial. So, now why is this significant? Well, the Bible tells us that the covenant of marriage mirrors the covenant that God lays out towards us as well. God doesn't love and accept us because we're so good. God doesn't love or accept us because we've earned it or we deserve it. Think about Christ and the people that he died for. He didn't retaliate when people mocked and belittled him and spit on him and even tortured him to death. Instead of retaliating, he actually prayed for his enemies and prayed for their forgiveness. He put his personal happiness aside for our sake. Now, because this is the internet and people aren't always too good at reading between the lines, now be clear on what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you should be in an abusive relationship or you should stay in a marriage where your life is in danger. Obviously. Probably had to say that because I know how the internet gets. But this parallel to the gospel goes even deeper. When it comes to salvation, Christianity actually is transactional, but the difference is that Christ actually paid the transaction fee for all of us. When we trust in Christ for our salvation, it's kind of like entering into marriage with him in this sense. We're safe with him. He's faithful, even when we aren't. And he won't leave us because of our mess ups and our failures or our mistakes, because nothing can separate us from the love of Christ and nothing can pull us out of his hand. This is what makes Christianity so radically different from any other religion in the world. In every other religion, you're accepted or not based on your performance and how good you do. But in Christianity, we're saved despite our performance, and because of that, we decide to change the way that we live. As the saying goes, religion says, I obey, therefore I'm accepted by God. But Christianity says, I'm accepted by God, therefore I obey. It's a completely different set of motivations. It's kind of like when you get married and you realize that the other person has just committed their life to you and they won't leave you. So now what you don't do is you don't wake up the next day after your wedding day and say, okay, now I'm free to just go ahead and treat them like crap because they're stuck with me. Of course you don't say that because you're thankful. Instead, what you think is, how can I show this person how much it means to me that they've accepted me, flaws and all, and they still decided to commit their life to me anyway? Our relationship with Christ is a lot more like that. So the next time that you catch yourself focusing far too much on your personal happiness in a marriage, what are you going to say?
What do you mean